Takes a lot of work to run a comic book store. A lot of work people don't realize that have actually nothing to do with comics, but are most likely to sink the whole store. Let me explain. Hey there, this is Perch. Over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about how the publishers or creators or certain storylines are killing comic book stores. And it's true on one level that comic book stores are healthiest when they have great product that they can sell. If people are clamoring for it, then people are coming in the door. People are coming in the door, they're spending money. That's what people want. That's what comic stores need to survive. But it's not quite as simple as that because there's a lot of costs, a lot of factors, a lot of things that go into running a store that have absolutely nothing to do with comics. Even if you're getting amazing content that you can sell, there's still a lot of ways your store can tank. And in fact, the most common scenario for these shops closing have actually nothing to do with comics coming in every month. So what kind of things are those? Well, I mean, first of all, in retail, you've got a problem with rising rent, like really rising rent. So it depends on what area you're in and what kind of deal you've struck. But if you're in a metropolitan area, you're in an area with a lot of population, your rent's probably more than doubled in the last 10 years. Certainly, if you live on the coast, that is how it's going. And unfortunately, you can say, well, just don't sell comics on the coast. It's like you can do that, but your audience starts to drop. You need a comic shop with a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people coming in. That means you're going to be in a more populated area. That means you're going to be subjected to these kinds of things. In addition to rising rent, a lot of stores and a lot of outdoor malls and just whatever happens to be where your shop's at have been getting increasingly kind of a homeowners association type feel to them. They're getting more rules, more regulations. In a lot of cases, they don't want a comic shop in their portfolio. Comic shops are not, they're not attractive. They're not halo shops. And what halo shops means are a shop that you put in that can bring business to other shops around it. Stores really like things like, well, here, I'll give you a crazy example. In outdoor malls, little kind of outdoor shopping malls that have become more popular, certainly on the West Coast, a little bit on the East Coast. They're smaller footprint than a big indoor mall, and they tend to have a better feel to them aesthetically that relates more to the current time, I guess. Anyway, Victoria's Secret, the underwear store, the store that, like, if you're a guy, you're walking past Victoria's Secret and you really want to look at the giant posters of women in their underwear. It's like free porn, but you don't want to be caught looking, so you're kind of doing that side with like, what's going on? And you're like, how in the world are they putting these posters up and not getting in trouble for basically having women in their underwear kind of out there on full display? Anyway, those are considered halo shops. And what's interesting about that, because I didn't understand it for a long time, is how does an underwear store help bring business to other stores around it? Well, as I say, it cuts two ways. First, for female shoppers, it relates nicely to clothes and makeup and hair salons and other things. It fits within a family of things. So female shoppers can come and enjoy multiple shops at once. And weirdly enough, it fits with the male shoppers as well, because as it turns out, men kind of like walking by that shop and staring at the people in their underwear. And so it's a shop that brings happy feelings to everyone. We'll put it that way. Even though, from what I'm told, the inside content is overpriced and pretty crappy for what you get, but I wouldn't know. Anyway, comic shops do not provide any of this. They don't provide kind of halo activity. The customers that come in and shop at comic shops are unlikely to then go into Victoria's Secret and buy panties. It's not a shop that brings business around it. So there's lots of subtle ways that these, for lack of a better word, these homeowner associations, these business owner associations, can kind of subtly push the comic store out. They'll give it less promotion on flyers and things that the shopping mall does. Usually when you sign an agreement, by the way, and you're in any kind of mini mall or outdoor mall or indoor mall, wherever you are, anytime you're not just a standalone shop sitting by itself, and that presents a whole new problems. Whenever you're a part of a group, there's usually a kind of set of requirements or things that the mall will do for you. They'll agree to, keep your exterior clean, not the windows, but kind of walking into it. They're going to give some level of security, and they're going to give some level of marketing and promotion to the shops that are in its portfolio. But you quickly find out there's a kind of a minimum support and a real support, and the minimum support is, for all intents and purposes, useless. That's things like, we'll put you on the map that sits outside the mall. When we have a website, you will be listed on it. But then you see that shops like Jean Juarez, or it's a salon for those of you who don't have it in your area, or kind of a trendy restaurant like you might. It's funny. Smash Burger was a super trendy restaurant that people were courting a while back, and then now people wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. They've moved on to like Shake Shack and kind of other things that might come in. But those shops get extra promotion. Those shops get a lot of additional help by the facility. And the comic strip stop tends to be buried. And in many cases, it will be left off of maps and directories, and you have to go chase them down and be like, hey, you forgot. And then, they'll grumble, and eventually it'll get done. Oh, I got to talk to the website guy. Get your comic shop back on there. Okay, thanks. But these kind of physical costs of rent, security, in some cases, places will charge you a fixed fee for cleaning kind of the outside of your shop. All of this adds up, and it's a cost that is, even if you have like a 3-year lease or a 5-year lease or some kind of agreement, it's something that they can add to. They can go, well, this is your lease, but we're going to be charging we need to build a new road kind of into this mall. We need to kind of work with the city for that. So there's going to be an additional fee of like, $45, $50 a month. And it's like, oh, that's okay. Not bad, not bad. But it adds up. I mean, I've been nickel and dime before with little like, hey, we need another, $40 a month for this. It's like, all right, okay. $40 a month. Well, it's $480 a year. It's just, it adds up. And then you combine that with rent that might be, 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 in some cases. You can get, there's a lot of different prices of rent, but increasingly they're all going up. In the last 10 years, there's been a lot of going up. And, it's funny, the last 3 presidents, you have Bush, Obama, and now Trump. And all of them have talked about doing things to make, bring business back again, or, help small business, help, push into the economy, help out basically. But this has never happened. None of this has really taken form. It's funny because all the people declare victory and the parties declare, look, the economy's booming. And yes, things are happening, and the economy is good now, and there's positive signs, sure. But this promise of, hey, we're going to streamline the taxes, we're going to help with some of the fees that go on, we're going to make it easier to, maybe we can't lower the fees, we're going to make it easier for you to file and do things so it's not taking up so much of your time. You can take that time and put it back into your business. None of this has ever happened. And it continues to be a pain point where it's taking time away. And that gets the other thing. In addition to costs, there's just a sunk time of running a business that is getting increasingly more complicated. And that's things like I mentioned, like filing taxes, like lobbying the facility or the landlord or the lease owner for something. It's like, hey, it's wintertime and the heater doesn't seem to work. My comics are freezing. Can we, get some heat? The heat needs to work. And this can be like a month-long process of chasing somebody down. And none of these things are a big deal. If you're hearing this, it's like, well, it's not a big deal. It's like that 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 30 minutes there. It's not a big deal, but it adds up. And very soon you can find yourself doing kind of 2 to 3 hours of administrative tasks a day. And it's big. Comic shops don't have the benefit of kind of a franchise owner behind them. And I did predictions kind of a while back, and I've always believed that somebody could come in and lay out a template for comic shops, basically kind of like a lightweight franchise. Like you come in and you pay a certain dollar amount, say it's another fee, but in return, the franchise owner or the management of it would do things like line you up with taxes, help file in a consistent way, help basically take all of these shops and, give some data back to them like, hey, we're going to make it easier for orders to happen. Hey, we're going to help you yell at Diamond when they don't ship you a comic that you ordered. We're going to do all these things to make running your business easier. I think that would be a big plus for shops, and shops would pay for it because they would get money back in return. But anyway, there's all those factors. And then you've got the whole hiring people problem. So, bigger businesses have the benefit, first of all, an employee training program and other things. And then also the kind of person who wants to go work at, say, Macy's or McDonald's or, pick your store. Does GameStop still exist? Is it dead or dying? I don't know. But shops like that, the people who are going to come in and want to work in those shops, GameStop may be a little more like the comic shop. They're typically just kind of normal people. And no, I'm not saying that comic fans are not normal, but I am saying that you get a different personality type who wants to work in a comic shop, and you do get people who are like, hey, yeah, I really want to work here. It's like, okay, well, what do you kind of tell me? What the question I give to people in interviews wherever I've been has been, tell me about your day. It's an interesting question. You learn a lot about people. It's like, tell me about you're working here, you're employed. It's start time is it's 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. and you walked in the door. Describe your day to me. Just tell me how you think your day is going. And you learn a lot from people. And I will tell you, more often than not in comic shops, you get this answer. Well, I come in, I catch up on all the comics, so I sit down behind the register and I read kind of as many comics as I can consume. And people come in and I take their money, and maybe I'll chat with them for a little while, and then I'll have a lunch break, and then I'll come back and I'll read some more comics, and then I'll close up. And that's a real common answer, and that is the don't hire this person answer. Yes, absolutely, you want the people who work in the shop to be educated, informed, up to date, and reading the comics. Yes, absolutely. What you don't want is somebody who's going to put that as the priority above all other things, because at the end of the day, you are running a business, and if somebody is going to tell you, kind of straight up in the interview, hey, I'm going to read comics. That's what I'm going to do all day. That's a bad sign. That's like, that's a very bad sign, because typically in an interview, people are telling you what they think you want to hear, and they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves, but that question in interviews, like, what's the worst thing you've ever done, or what's a mistake you've made, or tell me something that didn't work out. Nobody ever tells you the worst thing in the interview. Like, you ask that question, it's like, well, I work too hard. I'm supposed to work 8 hours, but man, I work 12 hours. I just like to work. I work hard. That's the kind of answer you get. Or, maybe, the people realize that's not a great. So it's like, I made a plan for, selling these books, selling these comics, and I put $200 into a little flyer outside, and then it turned out nobody was reading the flyer, and I didn't get the sales I wanted. Okay, that's a reasonable answer. Nobody tells you the real, like, nightmare scenario. Like, well, I was going to the shop, and then I thought I'll smoke a bunch of weed, and then I lost kind of track of time, and so I finally got to the shop at like 11 o'clock. I was high. I was like, we're trying to get the keys into the door. There's like 12 customers standing outside, pissed because it's 2 hours late. And then I go into the store, and I'm like, oh man, all these comics look weird. And that's when I realized I'd actually gone into Victoria's Secret instead, and I was trying to sell, panties and thinking they were comics. And whew, that was a crazy day. I mean, nobody tells you that, but a couple of people probably have that in their background. Anyway, so a bad hire, a bad employee screws you immediately in multiple ways. These are the people who are going to, in worst case, are going to steal or actually take money, take product. But more likely, they're going to be uninterested employees. They're going to sit behind the counter. They're going to stare off into space. People are going to come in. They're going to, they're going to greet them like, "Hey, welcome to the store," and then they're not going to. They're just going to let them vanish back into wherever they go, and they're not going to hustle, and then they're going to go home. Bad employees, because you can't be in the store all the time. not physically possible. So you're going to have to hire people, and hiring people is time consuming and painful. And the odds of getting a bad employee rather than a good employee are higher. So that's just a pain. Um, the last bit I'll say, 'cause a lot of these things may seem normal, but I'm making this video. I'm talking about this because day after day, people talk about how comic shops are going out of business because of bad product. Because hey, Naomi is selling 10,000 copies and it needs to sell 40,000 copies, therefore comic shops are going out of business. Or Mags Visaggio is a jerk on social media, so comic shops are going out of business. And I will say, of course, if Naomi sold more copies, that would be helpful. And of course, if Mags Visaggio hustled more on social media and helped push people into comic shops, that would be benefit. I mean, I'm not turning away any of this. That would be really good. But at the end of the day, your rent doubling over 2 years, your fact that you're not getting your promises made from the people you're paying the money to, the fact that ordering from Diamond feels like throwing a random dart at a stack of newspapers doused in urine. That's the kind of stuff. Or you have an employee that showed up to work, completely stoned and threw up on the product. I mean, these are the kind of things that that hurt the comic shop more. And it's true for any retail business, but those are the elements that are causing a lot of trouble. And the reality is, in today's current market climate, meaning retail shops everywhere, in today's climate, it's hard to run a business. It's gotten harder, like a lot harder. I think I talked about earlier. Both of I don't remember Bush doing that too much, but both the last presidents made a big deal about helping out businesses and we're going to get people back to work again and everything else. And they kind of what they mean there is, hey, we're going to make way for Amazon to create massive fulfillment centers and hire 100,000 people to move boxes around on the floor. And good for them for providing those jobs. That's cool. But what hasn't been addressed is how to make small business, medium business, how do you make them thrive in a retail world? Because, it's kind of like digital. There's these predictions of, well, brick and mortar retail is going to die. There's just nobody wants to drive around anymore and go into stores. And I will tell you, that is absolutely wrong. People like their cars, especially in the US. They like to drive places. They like to go into stores. They do it all the time. They don't like to go into crap stores. They don't like to go into places get overcharged. They certainly don't like to go into like a Best Buy and discover that, this TV that they're looking at is $4,000. They can order on Amazon for two with free delivery. That's something they don't like. But in general, people like stores. They're perfectly willing to go and spend money in brick and mortar retail. The problem is it's getting really hard to run a brick and mortar retail shop. It's just getting very difficult. And you can't just throw up a shop and do kind of the minimal effort and expect to survive. You look at Macy's. Macy's has clothes and panties. We're going to keep selling panties everywhere. Maybe that's what the comic shop needs to do. It needs to start selling panties. You put, I mean, where you need to go, maybe we need to go completely the other direction. You have a comic shop, and in the window, right, you have a bunch of like Adam Hughes illustrations of Catwoman in panties. And then the little message at the top says, come get your panties in here and some comics. And then people come in and you're like, there are no panties in here. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm just saying you can't, Macy's is going out of business rapidly. Part of the reason is they're more expensive than just ordering online. And it's a giant store you walk into and there's a bunch of racks of clothes and it's like, come buy our clothes and then leave. There's nothing more to it than that. It's why you do see all these shops opening up that are smaller that kind of, make an experience out of it. Lululemon is a good extension of Victoria's Secret. Same concept of Victoria's Secret, by the way. It's like, hey, look, we've got some yoga pants, and look, there are girls in the yoga pants, and they're bending over. Come on in and buy some yoga pants. That's their whole pitch. But you go in, and it's like, they've got little TVs going, and they've got an experience going. And then you're like, oh, these yoga pants cost $120. What the hell? But anyway, that's beside the point. Retail is tough. Retail is tough. comics retail is extra tough. These are the different factors that go on when you're trying to run a shop. That's a long video. Sorry, I kind of rambled on there a little bit. Hey, good for you if you stuck to the end. Love it. Leave me a comment below. Do you have questions, thoughts about running a comic shop? What are the big problems? Tell me more about those panties. Maybe that's your comment, so you can leave me that. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notification. Tell a friend. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thanks for listening.